just want to clarify what's in your probable cause affidavit. Does your probable cause affidavit state that Kohberger or a white Elantra went on US 95 south of Moscow?
No, it's not.
Okay. What does it state?
Memory serves, it states that the next time, it states that a vehicle was seen leaving the area of the crime scene, on King Road, leaving via Walenta Drive, which heads south from that area, and then terminates on Conestoga and Moose River Drive. That's what the probable cause affidavit states.
And the local mayor went further, telling the New York Times it could have been, quote, a crime of passion.
Yeah, George, good morning. So I spoke with the mayor in Moscow, Idaho last night. He described the crime scene as complex. He said Idaho State Patrol has now joined this investigation, adding that they're bringing in their mobile processing lab to help solve this case.
This morning, a tight-knit community in northern Idaho reeling after 4 University of Idaho students were found dead in an apartment across the street from campus. Of their deaths, an alert was sent to students to shelter in place. It was lifted less than an hour later.
There's been no named suspect, but as this investigation continues, you believe that the students and residents of the city are safe right now.
Right. Especially because given the very focused nature of what went on there, no other apartments nearby were involved. And in the ensuing 8 or 9 hours between the actuality of the crime and the call into the police, nothing happened. I think the eventual conclusion is going to bear out the fact that this was a one-off crime that was committed and was very focused and doesn't involve other students or the public in general at all.
Now, the mayor went on to say that he thinks a suspect could be named in the coming days. He also said there in Moscow, the city and the university are incredibly intertwined. And you guys, he described this crime as horrific, rare, and isolated.
Okay, so the big news story over the past couple of days has been the homicide investigation happening in Moscow. An unthinkable tragedy within the University of Idaho community. Crime is an element of this industry we don't usually cover here on the 208, but there's an element of this story that has been stoking frustration, both up in the small college town and down in the Treasure Valley, with families who have kids going to the school at the University of Idaho. The biggest component has been a lack of information coming from investigators. And here's what we do know. Just before noon on Sunday, Moscow police got a phone call, a report of an unconscious person in a house off King Road. When they got there, they found 4 U of I students dead. Killed, they believe, with a knife or some sort of edged weapon. We know the FBI is now involved. We know no weapon has been found and nobody has been arrested. Nobody is in custody, yet the city and the police have said there also wasn't any threat to the Moscow community, believing this to be an isolated, targeted attack. It's that last part that has a lot of people confused and questioning how this is possible. There's apparently someone walking around willing and able to use a knife to kill 4 people, but that threat ends inside that house?
Yeah, and that was the first thing we saw when we pulled in. We were kind of late to the game because a lot of the stations up here covering this are in Spokane. We had a long drive to get here, and by the time we got here, people mostly had left. We did talk to a woman as she was getting out of her house, packing her car. She lives right next door. She said she was the last of her 6 roommates to leave town. She's driving one of her roommates to the airport, and then she's driving back home to Homedale, Idaho. So a lot of people in this neighborhood are gone. Campus is quiet, and we talked to students who are still here. They say that academically they feel they need to be here for their own reasons, but a lot of them said that they don't understand how these data points connect to where they're safe, but no suspect is in custody. It's a difficult data points to make sense of, Brian.
Up there, Moscow police and the city, they're not beholden to the media when it comes to what they can and can't tell us, but there are families up there with students who want to know what's going, whether their kids are safe, for those that kind of stuck behind. So what's been the difficulty in getting information from law enforcement?
Well, I mean, we've gone to the police department and tried to talk to them face to face. They say the captain's not there, who's sort of in charge of being the public information officer for this investigation. So we come to the scene and ask the people on scene, is the captain here? They say the captain's not here. And it's difficult to get a hold of him through phone call because if he's not in the office, when we're at the police department, we're certainly not answering his phone there either. There was a moment earlier today where that captain went through and called back a lot of media members and answered some questions, but a lot of the details still weren't sorted out. Really, all we got confirmed from that phone call was they are looking for a suspect, and it kind of started and stopped there. There wasn't a whole lot more other than that. I guess we do now know that the unconscious person that they originally responded to is among those 4 that are dead. We did get that confirmed as well, but that's kind of been it outside the press releases. It's been very hard to get information.
And I understand they have a job to do. We want to let them do it. But again, we feel like there's some information that we could share with the public, let them know, kind of clarify some of these, as you said, these data points that don't kind of line up. And I know this next question I have for you, Andrew, is a difficult one. Just being in that town, being part of that community, you went to school not very far from there. You've spoken with some of the friends of some of these people, or at least some people who are very connected to this. This has got to be one of the most difficult things for them and for this community.
Yeah, you said it. I went to school here. I grew up here. I mean, my whole life has been between Spokane, Sandpoint, Moscow, Pullman. You talk to the people that knew them or went to school with them. I went to college with an older sister of one of them, and I'm talking to my friends from school who are very close with the older sister, and it's tough, Brian. It's tough, and a lot of these people are really struggling to make sense of it. I got a phone call from a friend who lives in Dallas, Texas. They left Pullman, Moscow area 3 years ago. And they're tearing up, and they don't know what's happening. They're concerned, and they're asking me what's going on, and I would like to tell them, but it's tough to get that information. And again, law enforcement has a job too. We totally understand that, but the vibe around here is weird, Brian. It's weird. You walk around campus, there aren't people around. It's quiet. The few people that will talk to us, they're kind of fidgety. They're a little concerned. I said, they don't feel comfortable here trying to understand how these data points connect. There's no suspect in custody, but you're supposed to feel safe. Well, they don't feel safe. And it's the only thing I can compare it to was the Tyler Helinski situation at Washington State that I experienced as a student. It is very similar to that. It is very, very odd. The difference is that there's no ongoing threat in that situation, but the way people are acting, the way people are talking, it's the only other thing I could possibly compare this to from my experience.
The strongest dream I have ever had.